Okay, great. Welcome everyone to the Workfront Champion office hours. Please say hello. There's a chat box. Please say hello. Or Dr. Doug, you're already, all right, I remember you from my Workfront days. And please say hello, where you're from, and any champions on the call, please say hi to. We'd like to know who's on the call because there's quite a lot of joiners. There's about 330 registered, so we hope that's going to be just about the same amount coming to this call. So let's get into the next slide. Your hosts. So I am one of the hosts for the Workfront Champion office hours. My name is Deborah Lawrence. I work at IBM and I have around 8 years experience in Workfront, delivering Workfront services at Workfront and at IBM, and office Workfront Champion. So Victoria, over to you.
Thanks. I'm Victoria, and I'm a Tech Arc Associate Manager at Accenture, and I've been doing all things Workfront for the last 7 years, and excited for this call today.
Cool. All right, so just to us through the agenda. So I'll be just taking us through some house rules and how to join a chapter, and then we're going to be going into the exciting topic of today, which is Workfront Fusion Foundations. So the scenarios every beginner should know. So really great best practice tips from 3 presenters today. And it's a really great call for those who have just opened Fusion and just gone, okay, great, well, what now? Also, it might be useful for some experienced users that might learn something too. We will have a Q&A box in open where you can ask questions throughout. Victoria and I and other champions will try to answer your questions as the presenters are presenting. However, hopefully we will have a sort of time for just questions alone. This call is just an hour long, so we'll just try and reserve as much time at the end if you've got any questions. Okay, this meeting is being recorded, so, and it also will be posted on a live public Adobe user group YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be on a live recording, please feel free to watch this later. We've already pinned that link. That's where all our recordings go. Victoria has already kindly posted it in the chat. So some house rules. So these are Adobe Code of Conduct rules. So please, no self-promotion of pitching of any kind is permitted. And when user cases are shared, please do not reshare this information without the original owner's consent. How to stay in contact with our chat. This is another link that's in our chat. So click on that link, click join, and you'll never miss a notification for our calls ever again. But you must do that, and if you want to know where our future calls are coming from. All right, our presenters today, the 3Ks. So we've got Kelly, Kaylee, and Kimberly, all in that order. And so I'll give it away to Kelly. I'll just stop sharing here. And that should allow you to share, Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's see. Hopefully. All right. Everybody can see my screen, yes?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Gardner. I am a Workfront Solution Architect at mSphere. I've been using Workfront for over 10 years, and I've been using Fusion since Workfront first rolled it out. I can't even remember the year that they rolled it out, but we were one of the early adopters at the company I was at, so started using it before templates were even a thing. So what I'm going to talk about today is how to make Fusion feel simpler, faster, and much less intimidating by starting with the templates that are in there for you to use. Fusion is incredibly powerful, but let's be honest, when you open a blank scenario, Canvas for the first time, it can feel very overwhelming. So templates can change that experience quite drastically. So I highly recommend kind of using some of these as options. So I'm going to start with, why to use templates, what most templates have in common. I'm going to give 3 of my favorite templates to kind of get you started, and then, talk about ways that you can expand them, common mistakes to avoid, and some key takeaways. So throughout this, hopefully I'll show you why templates can ease that barrier to entry for you. So why start with templates? Well, first of all, it removes the blank canvas scaries. So, it gives you something to start with. It gives you, provided working triggers. It includes pre-built filters and all of the things that you need to get started. It's going to demonstrate best practices. Everything is, built in there, knowing those best practices of how to build the scenarios. So it helps ease you into that. So instead of asking, where do I start? You can just, find a template and say, how can I use this? Or how can I modify it? Or will this get me what I need? Templates can reduce your setup time, fear of making mistakes, structural errors, trial and error learning, and just give you something functional immediately and can help really shift that mindset for you. Some things that the templates have in common. So they're all going to include some type of trigger. They're going to include filters that are pre-built in there, and then some type of final action. So it kind of gives you those 3 core features that you really need to have something working for you. And then it becomes a pattern, and it's repeatable across the different templates. And then it really becomes repeatable when you can start building your own. And it just makes Workfront feel a lot more comfortable. So the first template I'm going to go over is converting approved issues or requests into projects. So there's a template out there. It's quick. It's easy. What it does, it's going to watch for status changes on issues. So you can use, custom statuses, regular statuses that are already included out there, and it'll watch for those status changes. Once you trigger that action with the status, it's going to filter for those. Is it approved? Is it closed? Just making sure it's, doesn't need to not be converted. It's going to watch for all those things through that filter. And then it's going to convert to a project. Common use cases for this, request queues, campaign intake. If you don't have a traffic team that's, vetting, you can sometimes, skip the vetting of the requests and just auto convert as well. So some things to notice about this is there is an approval status filter built into it. So it's going to kind of give you that pre-built option. You can use approvals. So it's going to watch for approvals on requests, and then it's going to, it'll filter all of those out for you automatically. It's going to pick your template, convert your project, and then you can kind of map all of the different things from your request into that automatically. Quick ways to expand it. You can rename the new project. So you can change what came in as a request and you can change it to a project. You can set the project owner. You can update fields or, pre and post conversion. So you can update fields on the request side or even on the project side. A couple simple power moves that you can do is adding in routers for multiple project templates, or multiple request types or portfolios, things like that. You can post confirmations or comments back to the issues and requests as well. The second template that I really like to use is renaming projects with a naming convention. We all have our governance standards that we've put in place, so why not use a template and a Fusion scenario to help you get there? What this does is going to watch for your projects as they're getting created. It's going to rename them using a standard format. Some of those core modules is just watching your events, getting your project data, and then updating your project. This is a really great template if you do have governance. It can kind of create that standard across all of your projects. It creates great searchability within the platform. You can bring some custom form data to a higher level, so it's easier to view what different projects are doing. So some things to notice about this one is it does have the watch projects trigger, so it's going to watch your projects as they're getting created. It's going to update that project, and that's where your naming logic is going to live. And then filters, you can use filters to prevent constant renaming. So making sure if it already has these values, it's not just going to, try to keep renaming it. It'll just do it one time. So that filter is really important there. Some standard naming logic I've seen over the years is, including different things like client, project type in a year, campaign, channels, audiences, regions. A lot of people like to include the project reference number as well in there, and including like a year formatted date that's very specific to their campaigns. Some quick ways to expand that is you can do conditional formatting of that naming convention by portfolio or different groups. You can also use custom field values. If you don't want certain objects to be renamed, you can include a do not rename checkbox on your custom form so that it'll skip through on that Fusion scenario. And then, simple power moves on that as well as you can create multiple naming conventions with the routers. And then you can store original project names in the custom fields. So if you ever need to reference what it originally came in as, you would have that available to you as well. This last one is really comes from a tried and true comment that I hear over the years is I put in a request, it was converted to a project, and all of the comments that the original requester keeps making on the request instead of in the project. They always have that quick access to their request. So with this template, it's really great because you can copy notes from other objects and put them where they belong. So if somebody's constantly commenting on the request, you can take those comments and you can transfer them over to the project or the converted task or whatever was done with that, which is really great. So it creates that visibility if people tend to comment in the wrong place. And you'll always have those comments directly onto your project where they need to be. Some things to notice on this one is it is going to watch for notes. It's going to get your source object data, create notes on your target object, and it's going to route by the type of note that it is within here. So there is a pre-built router in here. The two previous templates I touched on didn't include any routers. This would be one that does include kind of a routing logic here for if it's a reply or if it's not a reply. If it is a reply, I'll kind of go look for that original comment and put it in the right spot. Important considerations to take in here too is, you want to prevent infinite loops from happening. So you don't want it to constantly try to copy things over and over again. So that template will really help with a lot of that. And then you can filter system or Fusion users as well. So making sure that it's not taking updates that Fusion is making or your admins are making, you can filter out based on that data as well. Some quick ways to expand this one. You can prefix comments with, noting that it came from an issue or from a request or from another object. You can copy only the public updates. Sometimes you can do a private comment to the company, things like that, making sure that those don't get copied. So you can expand your template to include that type of stuff. You can include or exclude attachments, so you can move documents from requests to projects as well. So just expanding on what gets copied from the request to the project. Adding in usernames and timestamp formatting, and then just like a big power move on that one be, based on object type, you can do different things. So if it's a project, you wanted to do these things. If it's a task, you wanted to do all these things. So using more routers in there to get it to different objects too. So these are my 5 ways to expand any template. So, reusable expansion patterns that are great for pretty much anything is using routers and conditional logic for things. So routers are great for if you have multiple object types within there or multiple conversions that need to happen. Using custom fields as control flags is really great. So making sure, certain criteria within a custom form is met before things can happen. So the Fusion scenario won't kick off until those control flags are met. You can create naming and formatting logic for anything. So as you're creating or, actioning things within Workfront itself, doing this, you can create your own naming convention. So every time it's creating something, it just follows that same logic over and over again. And that can be applied to pretty much anything within there. So using those, adding in error handling and notifications. So commenting back into requests or commenting back into different areas that Fusion has made a modification or Fusion has done something in some way, you can create those notifications. You can also tag users with the note features as well. So letting people know that things have been converted to a request and then tagging users. You also have the ability to log those actions back into Workfront. Like I said, with if Fusion's making stuff, you can use those notes to comment that Fusion did the conversion for you. That's a great one for governance. If you have compliance audits that you have to go through, you can just log those actions noting that Fusion did things. A few common mistakes to avoid. So missing filters. This is one, like, you always want to make sure you have those filters in place. Having no guardrails. So making sure you have good criteria for your Fusion scenarios. So again, with templates, all of this would be included in there. So it's great to start to learn all of these things with the templates. Hard coding IDs instead of using things like setting or getting values. That all again comes from using the templates, and those are all things that you'll learn as you're using the templates, what that really looks like. And then skipping real data testing. So make sure you're always testing your scenarios with, in your sandbox, making sure that they work. I typically go through like a UAT scenario where I'm testing good logic, I'm testing bad logic, what happens if this happens. So making sure you're running through all those real world scenarios. Final takeaways here, templates accelerate automation. So they're there to help you. They're going to help you get there faster, and they're going to help you learn. So lean into them. That's what they're there for. Small changes create big impact. So you can take those templates and modify them in a small way, and it's going to create a really big impact on what you're doing. Expansion does not mean complexity. You don't have to make your Fusion scenarios complex. They can be small, they can be simple. They don't have to be extensive. Just do the minimum that you need to do, get comfortable with it, learn it, and then learn those patterns once and then reuse them everywhere. So once you're learning something in one scenario, take that and apply it to all of your scenarios as you're building them in Fusion. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time. I'm going to pass it to Kaylee.
Yes, thank you guys. Let me share my screen quick. All right. So, hi everybody. My name is Kaylee Richard, and I work at Toll Brothers as a marketing operations manager. I've been a Workfront admin for a little over 5 years now, and I've been pretty involved with Fusion for the past 3 years. So really started from nothing, and now I'm here, I guess. So glad to be a part of this conversation. And I'm going to jump off of what Kelly was just going over with the templates and kind of talk about maybe you want to do something from scratch and how do you get started with the basics. So the first two things you'll need to get started with any Fusion scenario is a watch event and a webhook. So we're going to walk through the two of those today. And then at the end, I'll show like a super, super small scenario demo just as an example. Okay, so for your watch events and triggers, you're going to need one of these to really get started if you want something to be triggered in Fusion. So the first one you can choose is a watch event, and this one is going to happen instantly when the criteria of your webhook is met. We'll talk about webhooks in a second and how you can define that criteria, but this is going to happen instantly. So use this when you want it to always happen. An example of this would be if you have a new issue and you wanted to get converted into a project with a specific queue topic and you want it to happen right away. That's kind of one of those scenarios that Kelly was just talking about with the templates, and that's a great starting point for a lot of people in Fusion. There's two other watch events you can use as well that run on a schedule. So you have your watch field and your watch record. So your watch field is going to run on a schedule that you can set. So the picture at the bottom right corner is going to show like the interval you can pick or how many minutes, how often you want it to run. And that's going to run when you define a field that your webhook is going to watch to get updated. So this is a great one to use if you only care about watching one specific field and it doesn't need to be an instant update. An idea of when you might want to use something like this is a custom field change and it posts a comment to notify your project owner to take action. And maybe this runs every 15 minutes because it doesn't need to always be an instant notification. Another option is a watch record. So this is going to also run on a schedule, and it'll watch for when a record that you define within your webhook is updated or is new. So use this one whenever you want to watch for those updates or new records to be triggered, and that's going to trigger your scenario. An example of when you might want to use this is when a new marketing request is submitted and it assigns that issue to a designer based on the region, and maybe it runs every hour. Maybe that acts as your trafficker and it doesn't need to happen instantly, and you can have that set on an interval. Personally, I use watch events all the time. I think, having instant change is what most people want in Fusion, and having those triggers happen whenever something goes through Fusion. So the next thing you're going to need is a webhook for that watch event. A webhook is where you're really going to define what you want it to look for and what's going to trigger that scenario. So this is going to be your set of instructions for Fusion that tells Fusion exactly what to look for. And then once it's created, Fusion is going to continuously be watching Workfront for that update or that event that you defined. So you need to have one, because without one, Fusion doesn't know what to watch for. It's just watching everything and anything in Workfront. And this is really going to set up your connection between Workfront and Fusion and allow you to have different scenarios that get triggered on different things and do different actions. So this is always going to be your first step whenever you're building any scenario that's using a watch event. So I have a little screenshot on the corner here of just like a demo webhook. So to make one, it's super simple. Once you pick your watch event, you'll just have to click add on the module, and then you can set up your webhook here. So give it a name. Always recommend some sort of naming convention for your organization. We always have like the pipe and then SBO1 or prod, depending on what environment that webhook is used for. Then you're going to select what connection you want. So in this example, I'm doing it in Sandbox, so I'm selecting my Sandbox connection. You're going to need to pick what record you want the webhook to watch for. So issues and projects are always probably the most common, but there's a whole long list in Fusion you can look through to what you want it to watch for. You'll select if you want it to be the new state or the old state, and then you can add all of your event filters. So this is where you can get as broad or as specific as you need to be for your scenario. In this example, I am watching for an issue that has just been changed to the status of on hold. A great way to refine this even more, which I'll show in my example, is adding a queue topic to this maybe. Maybe you want to watch for one specific queue topic and watch for when that status changes. And then you can do add rules or rules if you need to add more filters within here. And then the last two things at the bottom are choosing if you want to exclude updates made by this connection or not. This one seems like maybe it's just a pre-check box, whatever, but it's actually important if you are using a service account and you want to make sure you don't end up looping. So excluding any updates with this connection will make sure that there's not going to be a continuous loop if your service account is the one creating the update. And then lastly, just checking the record origin. So new and updated records will watch for any new or updated records that meet this criteria. There's a couple other options in there as well when you go in to make one. So then just some quick tips and tricks for getting started. Be specific in your webhook filtering to avoid any unnecessary triggering, and also add filters early on to determine what runs and to avoid any errors. This way, you're not just setting up a webhook that's watching for any update to an issue, because if you set that up, you're going to end up having your scenario run a billion times. So adding specifics in your webhook will help. And then as you build your scenario, continuing to add filters throughout will also help not have every issue run through and avoid any errors. Also recognize that the instant watch events aren't necessarily unlimited. So be intentional. Unless you have the unlimited plan where you can just do as many things in Fusion as you want, you do probably have a limit within your organization. So be sure to just be aware of that when setting up all of your scenarios, to notice how many things might be triggered and how many things are running. Another quick tip is just whenever you're testing something new, before you turn on the scenario, you can click a run once button, and that'll let you run and trigger the scenario once. And then if it errors, you can see exactly where it errored. It doesn't actually break anything. It doesn't send any scary emails. And that's always just a good way before you turn it on and maybe have an unnecessary error happen you weren't sure was going to happen. Also, before you start building anything, always a great tip to map out step by step what you want to happen before building. Like Kelly said, Fusion can be very overwhelming. So if you're trying to step outside of those templates, think of a process start to end and map out every single step of what it needs to look for, what you want it to do, and that'll help you when creating each individual module. And then lastly, setting up a service account can be really helpful. This way, the service account is the one creating the updates in your Workfront scenario. But this is the point I made earlier about watching for excluding the updates made by the connection. You want to make sure you don't end up with any looping if your service account is triggering multiple things. Okay, and I'm going to switch over real quick. My screen did not switch over to Fusion, did it?
We're still in the PowerPoint.
Okay, hold on. I thought I shared my whole browser, but it didn't. Okay, 1 second. Let me stop and sharing and reshare.
I think Doug has his hand up for a question. I don't know if we want to stop for that.
Okay, let's go here.
Are you able to unmute yourself, Doug?
It's just in your slide on being intentional.
Yeah.
Everybody, when you're working with webhooks, you got to pay attention to the message queues that are coming in. I have a group in India who asked a question about how do I repair a scenario with a webhook, and it queued up 850 items, meaning that 850 items had been collected for the webhook to process, but the scenario was down. And then they asked how to fix it. And I said, well, you have to fix your scenario, and then you have to go back through your 850 items and update them manually to make sure that you don't continuously break stuff. And if you think about 2 minutes per scenario, that's 28 hours of effort to go fix something. So when we're looking at the word intentional, you want to really covet that word. Intentional means you're going to watch these things just to make sure they're actually working and not wait for some colossal effort to show up.
Yes.
Brilliant advice. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm just going to run through this real quick too, because I know there's a lot of information we can give in slides, but sometimes just doing an actual live walkthrough is what's most helpful for some people. And from what I found with my own experience, Fusion's just one of those applications that you just need to get in and try. Pick something small, try to build it in your sandbox, see what you can do. You'll probably be really impressed with yourself. So this is a very small, it's only 3 little modules that you could even recreate yourself to get started if you've never built in Fusion before. So this first one's going to be our watch event, and this is on the last slide I just showed, that was the webhook that we built out. So you can see here's where you would add that webhook, and you could create your new one. I already have ours created, and we can scroll down in here to see it's going to exclude my service account. It's going to watch that the status equals on hold. And then I did also add in a queue topic ID, because for this example, I want it to only watch for one specific request type, turning to on hold. And then I want it to notify the requester. That's my goal here. So there's my webhook, and that's my watch event. It's going to be an instant triggering as well. So then on the next module, I'm going to have it read the request fields. I wanted to pull out specific information from my request and actually include it in the update. So that way, when whoever on the end is getting this notification, they have a better idea of what's being commented on. And it's not just your request is on hold. They can see from the content of the comment that what got put on hold. So in here, we're going to set up the connection and pick the record type as issue. And you're always going to want the output to have the ID. And if there's any other outputs from your Workfront fields, you can select those here. And then you also can pick an output custom form and then pick fields from that custom form. So in my situation, this is my form that lives on that issue. So I selected that form. And then down here, you can see all the fields that live on that form. So now I can dig a little deeper. I want to know the home site numbers, 1 and 2. And then all the way down at the bottom, I also selected the community. So those are the 3 fields that I wanted to read off of my request and then pass on to use for the next module. And then lastly, we just want it to be running off of the new state ID. So that's going to be the issue that it grabbed from that first module. You can see when you hover over it, it actually is going to like flash what module it's pulling that information from, which once you start building really large scenarios, it is a really helpful feature to know exactly what's connected to what. And then lastly, we're going to post that comment on the request. So again, selecting that scene connection, since I'm testing in Sandbox, I'm going to choose the record type this time as update. Update is posting a comment in Workfront. When you scroll through and look for comment, it's not going to be an option. And then what fields I want to map. And then the object type it's going to post on is going to be that issue. The object ID, again, we're going to pull that new state ID from the first module, that original issue that triggered this. And then this is the text I want. So you can see this request for a featured home beacon was to be added to these home sites. So it's going to pull the 2 home sites that it got from the original request at this community. So it's going to pull the community from the original request and then post the full comment. And then I just want it to notify the person that entered the request. So I already ran it, so I already have it ready for you. And this is what it would look like. So that's super simple, just posting a comment, the status changed to on hold, and then this got posted from my service account. And then these numbers, 16 and 48, were the numbers from the form, and then Aloria was the community name from the form. So that filled in custom for that request type. Okay, I think we're saving some questions for the end, so I'm going to stop there and pass it off to Kimberly to wrap us up.
Great stuff, Kelly. Okay.
Hello. Let's see if I can share. And it's not letting me share my screen here.
Do you have the share button at the bottom, Kimberly?
I do. Hold on one second. It's just entire screen. Sorry.
Okay.
So what I'm going to be going through here is the specific scenario. So I have 2 different scenarios. I think I need to quit and come back in. I'm so sorry. It's not letting me share here.
No worries. While you quit and come back in, maybe we'll take some live questions.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Perfect. All right. Since Keely just presented, any questions on the scenarios Keely presented? I love doing custom notifications to users. That's always a good one. But we'll open it up to audience Q&A.
And please don't forget about the Q&A section as well, because there's lots of chats going on.
I have a question for you guys.
Okay.
I'm very new to Fusion, and so I am kind of creating a lot of Fusion scenarios right now in Sandbox that I inherited an instance. So some of the ones that were shared today, we actually already had, which was great. But do you have any recommendations into like a template where you're populating the if-then of what you want to accomplish outside of Fusion before coming into Fusion and then implementing the scenario? Like, do you have any like guidance as to how to map it out, I guess, like mapping techniques or framework that you guys may use?
Yeah, that's hard. I don't have a specific framework, I guess, but I try to just, pen and paper, map it out step by step and as like specific and as granular as possible. Because sometimes, on our side, we're like, oh, we'll just post a comment, But in Fusion, you have to be more specific with all of those filters. So kind of writing out your steps and then maybe like going back through it again and being like, oh, I can add more detail here. I can add more detail here. Kind of think of it like, if you ever heard the example of like teachers tell students, like, give me instructions on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And they're like, you take the bread, you take the peanut butter, you take the jelly, you put it on, and then you have a sandwich. And the teacher follows it step by step. And it does, she like spreading peanut butter on herself, or like there's no peanut butter on the bread. Think about it like that. Like, be like every single step that needs to happen, writing it out, because the computer, the robot, whatever, is going to need to know every single step.
So helpful. Thank you.
I think we had one more quick question, then we'll pivot over to Kimberly.
Perfect.
Jonar, you have your hand up, it looks like.
Yes. So going back to service accounts, right now the way our system admins are created is through the admin console, which is controlled through our SSO, which means it's controlled through Active Directory. So that means they have to go through IT. I'm having a difficult time like discussing it with IT or trying to convince IT to create a brand new essentially employee in the system. So do you have any tips or tricks, or even just a workaround that you might know of, so I can get that service account? Because it is kind of a pain to have to, and also who knows.
Okay, Kelly, were you going to say something? I like highlighted your name.
Well, I mean, having that system, I mean, you kind of got to work with your IT department on that and really show like the justification and use case of what you're doing for it. The companies that I've always worked at have basically just said like, this is for, it's for control. If they're in IT, they should probably understand the need and necessary steps that it needs to take. Like, you want your automations to be running through a service account and not like a user. There's so many things beyond, why, like, you just don't want it tied to a single user account. So I think just pushing for that justification with your IT department for them to create some type of user, or, if they don't want to create, ask them what their recommended steps or solutions for you would be. I just think you probably just got to keep pushing a little bit.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll save any other questions just till the end. It looks like Kimberly has her screen up here. Perfect.
Nothing like a company update in the middle. Okay, so hi, I'm Kimberly Ray. I am with Schneider Electric. I am a creative product owner, managing Workfront within our group, and I've been doing this for 17 years with the tool, since we started with the tool. So I'm going to go through a couple. I have two different scenarios of some general items that I've used, and the first one that we started using Fusion for. A challenge that we had was we had lists of projects and project data in Excel that were being captured as like our planning process before it was getting into Workfront. And they needed to get in as specific projects, and users were manually creating those projects. So what we did was, and this was the very first Fusion scenario that we did 6 years ago, where we created this kind of project files to store these CSV files. And we basically had them on a folder. And I created a scenario that was watching for that folder and watching for the documents within there. So our key setup was we had a CSV data that the values all matched what was in Workfront. We had the folder on here, and we had the dates in a specific format for us. And what we did was it goes through, next slide. So our Fusion module looks like this. We're searching for the documents on that specific folder within here. And this could actually be a watch document, but we decided to not do that. And we decided to have this as just an initial search because we wanted to have a little more control over this. This happens once a quarter for us, not on a daily basis. We're downloading the file and we're actually parsing the data list out into individual items in here. And once we have that data list, we're taking that information and we're searching by different object types within the system for us. So we're mapping what template we're doing, who the owner's name is, what's the group it's going to go to, because maybe it's different groups, and all the different object types within here. And then the final module is going in and creating that project record. when we go to create the record, it has a combination of the individual search items here, but also data coming out of the parsed list within here. And then we're also formatting the dates within here. So what we were able to do with this specific scenario is we decreased our manual time of creating. So we have 40 different unique fields on our custom form, as well as portfolio, program, template, etc. And it was taking us about 24 hours per quarter to manually go in and create all those project records, copy them, modify some of the data, rename the projects, etc. So Q3 2025, we created 178 projects in 9 minutes using this kind of scenario within here. And what I'm going to do now is show you here. This is in my preview instance. So I have this quarterly planning documents for import that we use and actually work very closely. Our planner is in Australia and I'm in the US. So this is something that works all day long. You can see we've been doing this since 2021. And we have kind of all of our previous quarters within here. She places all her files into pending upload, and then we review and we place one file at a time here into this upload. And then what I do is, I'm going to fingers crossed this works. We're going to run the scenario and it's going to search for the document, download, parse, and it's going to go through. And of course it did that. It would create the project records within here. So you can see that there was a date format issue within there. What it then does is it goes in and creates those records, and I have a report that's pulling them all in for her here. So it's really important that you have your formats going through within here and making sure that you have it, but it's taking this data and it's parsing it out and it's creating all the individual records here for us. So I'm going to go through the next scenario here. Let me just present here. So the second scenario that we did, that we launched live, was the tasks are being completed, but the project status doesn't reflect the current state. So what we decided to do was to automate that. We had milestones set on our projects and templates, and then we had a data store on our scenario here that would go through and watch for those completed tasks, check if they were a milestone task, get that information, and then based off of the mapping that we provided, it's updating it to the next project status for us. And what this looks like here, so in our timing plans, we have milestones. So when the individual tasks are completed here, we're telling it, if the milestone of studio development is completed, change the status to with stakeholder, because that's the next gate that we have within here. And what we have here is it's going through and it's actually looking at the data store here, and it's mapping and telling us, I'm watching for those completed tasks. I'm getting that information here. I'm making sure that it is a milestone and the milestone exists within this. And I'm getting that information, and then I'm going in and I'm updating that project status in here. And that way, when we're looking at a report and we're looking at that high level projects, we know that it's the right one, regardless of where the tasks are. They're being updated, and it's also updating at the project level for us. And this has been very helpful for us to map through and actually show the information within here. So I think that's all that I had to show, was those two scenarios that have helped us. And those are really the very first ones that we started to use, was parsing a CSV file and actually sorting it and creating the project records, and then making sure that we're updating the project status as it's going through here. Deepa, I believe you have a question.
Yes. I am very new to the Workfront Fusion, but in one of my scenario, this has happened. Like, we have seen one error in the scenario, and the case was not creating. And we wanted to troubleshoot, but I noticed that we will only have 30 days of history in the scenario. How to download that? So I was searching for the option to download the input and output of the response, but I don't see an option there. Maybe you can guide me how to download the input and output of the response and troubleshoot further, even the history we lost.
I'm not positive on the history of that and the downloading, but I can definitely check on that.
Deepa, what are you going to use the download for?
The input and output of the response for the fusion that scenario. I mean the success and failure case, and I want to troubleshoot later because it will only stay for 30 days. That just for sending out to the different team for processing and troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that for everybody on the phone, when you're getting these logs, you want to act on them a little bit more quickly than 30 days. So the download itself, there is the right bar of the log file itself. If you remember, you can go and open up one of the log scenario runs and you'll see the data that's from the right. My suggestion is to look at the data on the right and go ahead and you can copy and paste that out of the browser, but I don't think you want to. I think you want to use that log within 30 days like it's contained and then expires on. Not acting in 30 days, you might create a systemic problem by not correcting something. So the warning is similar to the webhooks being intentional. Error handling and error resolution needs to be acted on fairly quickly to keep from creating cascading production errors.
Yeah, I agree. And I also, in my scenarios, I have an issue being put into Workfront when there's an error log that we can track and some of the information in there. And that way we can make sure it's assigned out and responded to as well. So that's definitely an option here. I just wanted to share again, because I was able to get this to start to work here. I just had to fix the date values. So you can see it's actually creating the project records. It's searching for that record again, and it's updating the project name for us. When I come back into my Workfront environment here, I can see that those projects are being created with all the different information that's in here. And I can see that it renamed them. It put the reference number within here. It put more information within here. And then I can see the timing plans in here. And I can go through and actually, once these are closed out, the task and the project should be moving to the next gate for me as well here automatically for the statuses. You can see it's with Studio now because the operations milestone has completed and it's now on to the next step, which is with Studio within here. So that's all being done through those two automations in here of the quarterly planning upload. And then you can see also watching for those completed tasks and moving it to the next gate here.
Awesome. All right, I think Gerald, you're next on deck for questions.
Hey, thank you. And yeah, Kimberly, this is a really cool kind of offline planning scenario. Just to clarify, so it sounds like your campaign planners are doing that kind of offline. You're collecting all of that information in CSVs, and then that's what you're using to kind of do that kind of batch conversion, just to be clear.
Correct. Yeah, it's a process that I've been working to try to get out of the Excel format, but it is, we have some very strong-willed individuals that really love their Excel and really love the planning and the logic behind a lot of it. We have a locked down file that kind of pulls together a certain allocation of hours. So if they go in and they select a web banner, we know it's going to take this many hours, and that pulls against their allocation in that file. And then we pull that CSV and we run this and input it. So we are working on some other ways to kind of evaluate Workfront planning and how does that impact and how does that go through for here. But for some of the teams and a lot of teams, they just really love their Excel files. And so we just needed to find a better way to get that data and get it into Workfront and a faster solution for us.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. I'm in a similar scenario here where I've got some users and groups that want to do more planning, kind of offline, old fashioned, and then others that have tried prior to Workfront planning kind of coming online, they tried recreating that planning feature set or creating the planning feature set in Workfront unsuccessfully, previous iteration of Workfront that we inherited. So we're sort of dealing with a couple of different flavors of customers that want to work differently. So that was really
Yeah, it's
Thanks.
difficult. And once we get them all in here, I then have another scenario that runs of reminder messages that are going out of when their briefs are due. And so we kind of have a robust process with that to get them in here. But the very first scenario we did was parse the data and build a project out of it. And that there was time savings for our planner of not doing the admin of creating the records individually.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions we want to take live?
Okay. Well, thank you so much to the presenters today. It's been really, really, really good. The 3Ks. Kelly, Kaylee, and Kimberly, thank you. It's been absolutely amazing. So let's just use this last 10 minutes for any questions. We've got a couple of questions in the question box, Q&A box. And the first one is, curious if any of you have dabbled with the AI assistant, particularly interested in using the AI assistant to upskill and help navigate starting from scratch scenarios. I personally use it for a lot of text mode, but what about Fusion, guys?
I unfortunately have not been able to get it approved by legal just yet.
Okay.
So we're still in that battle.
We are moving to the unified shell today at 9 p.m. So I'll keep you posted after that, because then we need that to get the AI features. But I have used just like chatting with ChatGPT to like write out my thoughts and have it kind of map out what modules I might need just as a starting spot. It's not always correct, obviously, but it's a good way to kind of get your thoughts together.
Yeah.
You got a lot of seams in the chat for being an AI lockdown.
Yeah.
I was particularly curious. I'm by no means a Workfront expert, but folks on my team are, and I'd love to explore the concept of using the AI assistant to kind of upskill those resources and use it as a means to, fact check how we're building things from scratch, right? But yeah, curious to see how you guys make out with it. Keep us posted.
Yeah. I have
Anybody else, maybe even not presenters, using AI assistant with Fusion?
Yeah.
Sounds like AI jail for all. Sounds good.
Check in the chat. There's lots of comments in here.
Lots of legal blockers, right?
Yeah. All right. The other question in the Q&A was from Catherine, and it's, when I've copied scenarios with custom webhooks, I have a difficult time triggering the new webhook. The Workfront webhook has more filters to set up, but the custom webhook needs the payload first. Anyone, any commentary there? We might have to circle back with you, Catherine, in our experience post.
I had, in my instance, we had a lot of developers build the scenarios, so they don't tend to use the watch. The Workfront run, which is so much easier. And so when I get to the clone, I mean, I've sometimes been able to trigger it, but it just seems, I get why they do it, but then to change it from a custom webhook to a watch, then I'd have to go through and change, so many of the polls would have to be changed. So yeah,
the way it works right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I put something in the community, didn't get anything, so I figured it's just something kind of. Nobody here has any extra ideas, huh? Yeah, I wish, and all the ChatGPT and all that community stuff, it's like the webhook is embedded into the scenario pretty much. So you can't take the URL and copy it anywhere, which is most help. Yeah, it's really
you have to create it from scratch each time.
Catherine, do you have any remote consulting hours that you use for any of the
we will in a little bit.
Okay.
That might be the best way to go.
I do. I think that would be great. We have, because I currently have the WSAF package. So I have a Workfront system admin and I have a remote consultant that I work with. These are the types of questions that they're very helpful with being able to show your challenge and come up with some items there. So I think that that's definitely a good solution.
So the remote consultant is just like a part of a service package.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, we're going to be doing a migration, so this will come up pretty much just because we have
Absolutely.
two actually scenario data sets that have to be not really merged into one. They kind of have to still be parallel. So I'm thinking it'll come up, but if not, that's good to know because it seems like it should be something not difficult. And every time I've triggered it, I've gone through so many ways to trigger it. I'm like, what did I even do that made this work finally? So okay. So at least I know it's not, I'm not missing something obvious. I appreciate the input with that.
Definitely
I have
not.
a comment. I have a comment for you on getting to the filter. There is a API to the subscriptions, which are the things that are stored for these webhooks and monitors.
Okay.
I had to use something similar to this when we had to do this changeover for the webhook version 2. And I ran these APIs and it gave me the explicit filter that was being used, but I don't remember how I did it. So look up the concept of subscriptions in the community. You might find an answer in there.
Okay. Great. I appreciate
Awesome.
it. And I really appreciate you guys confirming I'm not missing something obvious. You know, you kind of, you get so deep into something and then you pull back and then there's something that you just missed that was so obvious. So I'm glad to confirm this is a little trickier. I love our scenarios. They're really well built and all that, but just to try and copy any of them, it's really arduous.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, and it's from Florence. Is there a way to rerun a scenario that had an error once I fixed the issue?
You should be, yeah. I mean, from my experience, if you have an error that it turns off your scenario and then you end up with that backlog queue, when you turn it back on, it should rerun everything in the queue if you haven't cleared out the queue.
That is correct. And then there is a couple other answers here. You're going to have an unprocessed log in your scenario. When you open it up and you're looking, you're going to see these little yellow markers on the right-hand side. You can reprocess for that, but you might have to be careful of that. Then if you need to reprocess, sometimes you have to go back to the original record and then change it to something other than the webhook was processing, and then change it back so that it refires on its own.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining today. Just a quick note that there will be a post-event survey. We'd love to hear what other future topics you'd like to see. This was one of the ones that was requested last time. So definitely give us your input and have a great day. Oh, and we'll post a follow-up on Experience League too for any other questions that you might have. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.